Hey friends, it's Mackenzie Massey. I'm your Southern Kentucky Outreach Counselor. Tonight we have a really good discussion talking about guardians of the future. We're talking about parents, we're talking about guardians, we're talking about support systems. So go ahead and tune on in. We're going to give you about a minute to get going and we will be right back. All right, friends, we are a minute in. Hopefully you can tune in with us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and add some of my favorite people on planet Earth into this feed so we can chit chat. Hey, Robin, how's it going?
Hey, Mackenzie, it's going good.
Good. You look like you are traveling today. I think I heard that on the tail end of the
Oh,
conversation.
yeah. I
Yeah.
drove halfway across Kentucky today.
Oh gosh. And Kelly, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. Good to see you all.
Yeah, good to see you. And last but certainly not least, Brandon Brown, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How's everybody?
It feels like a Monday for some reason.
Yes.
But this is probably the highlight of my day. So I'm going to ask you to reintroduce yourselves. Tell me what territory you serve and what was your favorite Halloween costume that you ever had. Robin, we'll start with you.
Well, my name's Robin Hyder, and my territory is kind of all of Kentucky now because I am the Outreach and Communications Coordinator. And my favorite costume probably had to do with my parents' jobs because my parents used to work at the jail. So I got to be a deranged clown one year, complete with the orange jumpsuit from the jail that they brought home.
That's utterly terrifying. I love that. Kelly, what about you? Kelly, you also have to tell us about the absolute terrors that you and your husband put each other through each year.
So my name is Kelly Smith. I'm the Louisville Metro East Outreach Counselor, and so I serve Oldham, Shelby, and the eastern half of Jeff. So every October, my husband loves to hide Michael Myers around the house, and we have this mask. It melted 2 years ago or last year, and he got a new one. So I thought I was like out of, in the clear, but he hides him daily, and so I just walk around my house, opening doors, being like very, it's a lot of caution. Last night it was under the covers, like on the pillow where I went to go to sleep. The dogs don't love it. Moose, the new one, doesn't love it. But yeah, so that's every October. He stays strong and steady with that. We love homemade costumes, and so I love doing, and getting creative. One of my favorites was when we were Bob Ross and I was the painting. But my absolute favorite was in 2020, and I dressed up as a dumpster fire, a literal dumpster fire, because that's just kind of how I summed up 2020.
I love that. I am so sorry, guys. A medic helicopter just went down. And so if you are the praying kind, stop and say a good prayer. It is a helicopter of a girl from my high school. I don't know if she was on it. So stop and say a little prayer. We're just gonna keep on going. Brandon, sorry to bring the mood down completely. Brandon, let's talk about you. Where do you serve and what was your favorite Halloween outfit?
Yes, thanks, Mackenzie. So I serve Eastern Kentucky. I'm over here basically from Lawrence County down to Pike County, and then I have some other ones as well, like including Elliott, Morgan, Magoffin, Wolf, Breathitt, and Knott. And so I've had a lot of costumes throughout my life, and I can remember my very first one. Of course, my very first one, only from pictures. But I think my favorite costume was actually a couple years ago when I surprised my dad and was him for Halloween. If you know my dad, which I know Kelly and Mackenzie have actually met my dad before down at the state fair. We look very similar. The hairline is strong with us both, and I've got the beard. He sometimes will do the beard, but we sound the same. We laugh the same. We're just spitting. I'm a spitting image of him, and so he was about to retire, and so I thought I'd like to pay a little homage to him, and so I called my mom and I said, "Mom, give me a couple of his King's Daughters Medical Center shirts," and so she found a few t-shirts that he'd had. So she brought me that. And then I literally got the laminator out. I made a badge as Mike Brown. And he was a receiving clerk. So he handled talked to UPS. And so I grabbed a big box and wrote a big old distributor that they have that comes to the hospital, and had put an address on the box. And so I carried the box around with my khaki pants on and a pair of tennis shoes. And so when Dad saw me, he looked at me for a minute. He's like, and then he just died laughing. And everybody, it was so funny. Everybody that saw me were like, "Oh my goodness, that's Mike Brown." And I'm honored to be Mike's son. So it was fun to paying a little homage to him, as he was retiring. And now he just gets me with let me check my schedule. And so we just have to dismiss that a little bit with him, because he has a free and open schedule all the time, but he has to check it. Right. And so, but that's probably my favorite. It didn't take much. It didn't put a lot of money into it, but it was kind of just to, give him some credit.
I love that. I am Mackenzie Massey. I serve the southern part of the state. I have 13 counties to the south. I have everything from Wayne to Hart to Edmondson. My family is calling me. My favorite Halloween outfit was actually, I went as my late great Aunt Gladys. I had her wig that she actually used, and I stuffed socks in my bra, and I put a pillow in the front and a pillow in the back, and wore pantyhose and a green dress with white tiny circles on it. And I carried a bag around that I hit people with in the hallway, like old women kind of do. But another fun fact about me, I've never been trick-or-treating. So I lived on a gravel road as a child. I know, Kelly, I know. All my friends are like, "We have to take you." I lived on a gravel road as a child. You couldn't even throw a baseball and hit the neighbor's house. So my neighbor did, however, put candy in my mailbox each year from when they moved in. So I had to.
Well, I want to take you trick-or-treating this year. Just come. I said I want to take you.
Okay. Well, let me know what the theme is, because I'd love to dress up. Let's go ahead and get into it. Tonight we are talking all about guardians and parents, and kind of what they should be doing. Let me rephrase that. What our advice to parents on what they should be doing following their child through their higher education journey. So we will start with question number 1. Robin, what should parents expect to contribute to their student when it comes to higher ed planning?
A lot, first of all. But one of the biggest things for parents to contribute is support. Yeah, it means talking to their student, finding out what their students' plans are early on so they can help them make plans. I've talked to some parents who were filling out the FAFSA and they actually don't even know what their student wants to study. You want to make sure you know that so you can help them make the best decision possible. If there's parent meetings, no matter what grade, whether that be your freshman year, your senior year, whatever, make a point of attending those, because counselors or other attendees that are there are providing the information you need to know about that specific year so that your student's staying on track. Along with that, when we start getting into senior year, it starts getting really intense. A lot of senior parents get overwhelmed with it. But, making sure that you're supporting your student as they're doing extra work to meet deadlines. And then when they get into their FAFSA, of course, you are actually a contributor to their FAFSA as far as financial information. So making sure that you're hitting those deadlines so that you're not throwing your student behind. Because I know as a parent, you can get really busy, but some colleges, have a deadline. Hey, we have to have the FAFSA by this date for your student to get scholarships. that includes your part as well.
I love that. And I love that you prefaced it with a lot. I would totally agree, but I do feel like, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about this, when we get into the advice part, but kind of keeping track of a timeline can be really helpful. And it can also kind of keep you more on top of things. So you're not trying to climb those things. Speaking of timeline, Kelly, what is a good timeline for parents to follow in terms of higher education, like for their student?
Yeah. Well, we have lots of tools and timelines in our publications and on our website. And I'm a very visual person, so having those timelines there is kind of almost like a nice little checklist. So for parents, I would say freshman year is really just trying to talk with your student, explore those future career plans. Like, what do they want to potentially do? How can they get there? Like, just start kind of planting those seeds. That way, it's not like we're waiting until senior year. Like, what do you want to do? So having those conversations now. In high school, there's a lot of different opportunities for different courses, AP courses, dual credit, IB, CAI. There's a lot. So talk with your high school and figure out like what courses are offered and, what the student would need to do to get involved in those and take advantage of those. Get them involved in extracurriculars and clubs and programs and keep track of that, kind of, keeping an eye on and checking in. For me, freshman year, I wish somebody would have really checked in on grades more. That's something that, at the end of the year, when it came time and getting that keys money, it was not as high as I wanted it to be. So keeping track of that. Sophomore year, really just getting a little bit deeper. We're starting to do those practice ACTs, practice PSATs, keeping track again, looking into those dual credit and AP courses. I always feel like we're kind of building each year, getting a little bit heavier. So really starting to look into that college and career exploration and having those conversations, if they're in a pathway at school, is this something that you could see yourself doing in a future career? What would that look like? Junior and senior year, it's going to get a little heavier. That's just, that's just the truth. But I feel like, again, if you're starting with 9th and 10th grade, it won't feel like as complete, so much of a shock. But junior year, we're really, really gearing up for the ACT, that state mandated test in Kentucky in March. So encourage them to study and do some practice tests before then. Don't let that be the real first time they're actually sitting down and doing it, because it can mean a lot with scholarships. It can open up a lot of doors. So don't let that first time in March be the real first time they're taking it and taking it seriously. Start looking at college tours. Spring break is a great time. Also college fairs. If you have, if the student has at a school where they're doing any college fairs, or if there are any national college fairs that are going to be coming nearby. I'm based out of Louisville, so we have a big national college fair each year in the fall where tons of colleges all across the country are coming in. So really encouraging to check those out. Senior year, if they need to do a retest of the ACT, encouraging them to do it early, because again, we're starting to fill out those college applications. Starting to make that list and narrow it down of where we're applying, keep track of timelines. I can't stress this enough. Scholarship timelines, any type of deadlines or anything that we need to take care of, because we can't fix deadlines, and that's a lot of times I see students, they've missed out on some big scholarships because they didn't pay attention to those deadlines. Like Robin said before, attending those financial aid nights, attending any college nights that the school might have, because they're going to have a lot of great staff there and a lot of support. A lot of times we're at those. And so not to toot our own horns, but we are a really great support and we can help answer, beep, beep. But we can help answer a lot of those questions. And we want to help answer those questions because, the worst feeling in the world is when a parent calls you over the summer and, their student is about to start college and they're like, I don't know what we're doing. And, it's like, well, we had, all these college nights, all these FAFSA nights, all these opportunities that would have loved to talk to you and help you through this and help you kind of step by step. If your student is depending on the school, if there's any text alerts, Google Classrooms, any type of thing where they're sending out any type of communication, make sure you're signing up for that too, because a lot of information goes out. And I don't have any kids, but I have some nieces and nephews that are about that age. And if you ask them, is there anything important going on at school? Nah. but maybe, 5 different scholarship emails came out and some really cool opportunities, some college tours, some college reps on site. So just making sure you're kind of keeping up with what communication is going out at your school. Also in the spring, I forgot to mention with, once we're getting the FAFSA done, once we're getting all those applications and, we're good to go and we're getting admitted, then becomes, the real part of making those decisions, looking at those aid offers. And again, we, have a lot of opportunities where we're working with schools where we can help you through that process. So it is a little overwhelming. Senior year kind of comes at you fast and there's a lot, but if you break it down into a timeline, and definitely feel comfortable reaching out to counselors, outreach counselors and staff, and we're happy to help.
I'm going to give like a little shameless plug for KY Goes to College. It is a KIA initiative, and it is a really good, it has a really good kind of timeline set up. We're starting to focus on juniors more with that college match day, where we're giving juniors a chance to kind of explore colleges that may not be in their territory. And then we get into that senior year, and that's where, we really focus in on college application day, FAFSA completion, decision day. So if you are a parent or guardian and your son or daughter's school isn't doing KY Goes to College, maybe you should call someone. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head. But Kelly, I love that. And I also love the emphasis on college tours. That is, college tours are where it's at. And I tell students all the time, from, freshman to senior, once you've narrowed down like your top 2, maybe even your top 3 of where you want to do college tours at, go to a social event. So when you go on a college tour, they're going to be like, oh, this building was founded by a large bearded man who created it out of nothing but popsicle sticks and hot glue. And we've built our entire campus around this building. And you learn a lot about the campus, but you need to be able, your student needs to be able to see themselves there. Go to a football game, go to a basketball game, chess tournament, dorm war, swim meet, something. A lot of colleges will also let you sit in on a class. If you want to declare, education or social work right out of the gate, or nursing, while you may have to have some prerequisites to get into those colleges, you might be able to go and sit in on a class or just spend the day there. So please be doing that. And also reach out to some students, have your student reach out to some students who went to that school, who went to that college and university from their high school. That way they can kind of see and talk about what their experience was like transitioning from X county to X county. So I will shut up now. Let's talk to Brandon Brown. Brandon, yours is kind of going to be like a 2-part, maybe even a 6-part question. In terms of the FAFSA, that free application for federal student aid, what is a contributor and who is considered a contributor?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad you asked me that question, because as I was thinking about the conversation we're having with what Robin said, with what Kelly said, we know who's on this Facebook Live right now. It's the parents that support their children, and they want to get as much information as possible. And the reason that I mentioned that and kind of go back a little bit is because more than likely the parent that's listening today knows of a student that's in the school that maybe their parents really don't understand what they need to do, or really don't want to maybe support them as much as maybe another parent does, different scenarios, different circumstances. But speaking with contributor, and I think this is important, is just because you're contributing on the FAFSA does not mean that you're signing up yourself as a parent to pay for your child's education. And I know that's something that parents get really nervous about, is because we know higher education does come at a cost. There are more affordable options, but there's also some options out there that have a pretty nice, a pretty good little tuition cost. And so for contributor, the word contributor basically means that you're putting your information on the FAFSA. So typically what we're looking at is the student is considered a contributor. They're putting their information. If they file taxes, then they'll put that information in. Actually, one of the good things about it is that literally will go straight to the FAFSA. They won't have to be a CPA or a tax expert to figure it out. It comes right on there. And then another contributor would be a parent. Now, this could be a biological parent, or it could also be a step parent potentially, if that step parent is married to that biological parent. So contributor wise, yes, you're putting your information on there to possibly provide a chance for a student or your student to get some type of state or federal aid that is no cost to them. So that, I want to stress that benefit. They will not have to pay back a grant if they're eligible for a grant. And you're not signing up to take out a loan just because you did a FAFSA. So when you contribute to the FAFSA, you are providing an opportunity for that student to be able to maybe have an opportunity to go to college. And so that's what we want to look at with being a contributor. And Mackenzie, go ahead and follow up with the next question there and see what we can get into.
So I'm going to play a little bit on that. What you're signing up for when you are a biological step or adoptive parent, when you are putting information on the FAFSA, you are signing up to contribute information. You're not signing up to contribute money. You're not signing up to send in anything like ASPCA money. Like, it's not a monthly thing. You do it one time per year as a biological, adopted, or step parent. There's two types of students. There's dependent students that will use that biological, adoptive, or step parent. Brandon, what is the other type of student?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the other type of student that we would work with on a FAFSA is what we call an independent student. Now, in most cases, when our outreach counselors are in a high school hanging out with our awesome seniors, most of these students will be considered dependent, meaning they have to have their parents' information on the FAFSA. Now, if they're independent, so most of the time what we're looking at for a high school senior would be someone that's been in foster care anytime after the age of 13. If they have a child that they support. And so that's also something that comes across. If they're married, I literally had a married couple one time already, seniors in high school in the spring, already married. Now, don't go getting married to become independent. I'm just going to say, let's focus on the education first. But another one that we see as independent is also if the student is in a legal guardianship. Now, we know family circumstances can get a little in the gray area. Let's just call it what it is. And so a lot of times, maybe a child is being raised by a grandparent, an aunt or an uncle, a sibling, or even a friend. And when this happens, if the person that basically has responsibility of them goes into the courts and requests a legal guardianship, and if that court defines their new relationship as a legal guardianship, that is a permanent legal guardianship. Thus, that student is considered legal guardianship, and they'll be put as independent on the FAFSA. Now, this happens prior to being 18. So that's something to also keep in mind. Now, a lot of students will be like, well, my grandparent has custody of me. Okay, that absolutely, it's not legal guardianship. Custody tends to be a little fluid, and I like that word. We were actually talking about it prior to coming live. Fluid is a really good word because sometimes, you might go from custody from a parent to a different parent, or maybe to an aunt, uncle, back and forth, depending on what the circumstances are. So if you are in custody, that is not legal guardianship, and we're really going to have to go back to that parent's information. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this because I think this is really important, because there's a lot of cases where paperwork was never filed. Student has lived with grandparent since they were 2 years old. Maybe has contact with mom or dad. Maybe not. If they have a good relationship with mom or dad in this situation, we're going to see if we can go ahead and get parents' information, depending on which and we'll probably use the parent that the student has a better relationship with, more than likely, because, there could be some sketchy things there that we don't want to get back into or anything. But sometimes there's really not a need, or in my opinion, I shouldn't be contacting those parents, nor do I want my student to contact those parents. Being in education, I feel like sometimes I'm a counselor and I don't even have a degree in counseling because I'm listening to these students and trying to figure out and understand their circumstances. And I will never admit to being a counselor. Absolutely not. I just want to make sure they can get the most money they can. But in a case where we really can't reach out to the parents, thankfully, the federal government gives the college or public, private, community, and technical college the ability to do what's called a dependency override. And what this does is it allows us as the helper, the school, and the student to bypass the information of needing a parent on the FAFSA. Because sometimes, let's be honest, we are not going to be able to contact that parent for nothing. We just can't get a hold of them. We don't know their whereabouts. And so actually, when we do a FAFSA, there is a provisional independent where there's different cases on what might have occurred in the student's life and circumstances. One thing that I always will do with some of my students, some students might not be comfortable telling me what's going on in their family. And I'm okay with that. I respect their privacy and everything, but I also try to open it up to, well, hey, would you mind talking to the counselor here at the school? Let me be a part of that conversation, because then we can direct you based on your situation, what we can do on that FAFSA. And so I've many times, and I know the three of you have probably called a college on the student's behalf and said, hey, John, I've got Daniel here. Daniel's an awesome dude. He's ready to go to Morehead State or wherever. Here's the situation. How can we help him? The college has that ability. We don't as outreach counselors. We can't make that declaration. If I could, believe me, we would be doing some things, but I can't. I don't have the necessities. I don't have the legal ramifications to be able to make that declaration like a school can. So typically, if that's your situation, here's what we do. We simply contact the college. We usually fill out a one-page document and then provide documentation to support why I'm not able to contact my biological, adopted, or step parent. Then, yes, it's a manual process. And yes, it might take a little bit of time. But in the end, it might be worth it because you're not having to get into something that you don't need to be in. And I know I'm speaking for Robin here, Kelly, and Mackenzie. Our students are our most important thing. Most important. And when we're sitting across from our students, let's just be honest, we know some of their situations. We do. And we are never going to put them in harm's way. We don't want to do anything that makes them feel uncomfortable when it comes to this FAFSA. That's why there's ability. That's why the federal government has made abilities with the Department of Education to help students in these cases. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Please don't let one of those cases be a barrier from you getting a college education or a vocational program where you're going out making more money than I'll ever see in my life because I chose education. Talk to us. Give us a call. Shoot us a text on the text machine. I call it a text machine. It's a text line, but I call it a text machine. That's what I literally have it labeled in my Outlook box. Get a hold of your outreach counselor. We'll stop and we'll pull over on the side of the highway, whether it's in Western Kentucky or Eastern Kentucky and anywhere in between. And we got you. We got you.
I love that. Like Brandon said, we know that this can be really difficult for some students. We know that getting that information from a parent can be an extreme barrier. We're aware of that. We try to work with students on that. I do want to shoot you straight, which is pretty much what you're always going to get from me, literally always. So it may not be the most gracious thing I've ever done, but if a student comes to me and says, I haven't talked to my mom since Wednesday. I'm staying with my friend. I'm really mad at her. Nope, not an independent student. So there's going to be some things that we have to discuss with that student. Also, just because you don't, as a parent, just because you don't want to put your information on your child's FAFSA doesn't mean that they're going to be an independent student. That's also not how that works. So I'm not a parent, but I'm telling you right now, if I were, there's nothing that I wouldn't do for my student to get some type of either federal or state grant eligibility. And newsflash, if you don't want to put your information on your student's FAFSA, you could be taking them out of the running for some scholarship money, whether that be institutional or in your community. So before you check it off, like, oh, I'm not going to put my information on there. I'm not going to put my social on there. I don't want the government to have my social. I'm going to say this. I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. You'll never guess who gave you that social. Was the government. They already have it. So I'm not asking you to donate any type of organ. I'm asking for you to put your first name, your last name, your date of birth, your social, and also you will never guess who deals with taxes, also the government. That's what I'm asking you to do. And I don't care if you make $600,000. I don't care if you make $6 million. I don't care if you make $6. If your student is not going to receive that Pell Grant, that's fine. We can work with them. We encourage students to complete scholarships. A lot of scholarships, you're going to have to provide some type of confirmation that you completed a FAFSA, because to get those scholarships, sometimes students have to show a need. To get institutional aid, sometimes those students have to show a need. So I totally understand, why you would be hesitant with it, but FAFSA is strictly used for educational purposes. That is why your student completes the FAFSA. Free application for federal student aid. So I totally get it. Is it a hassle? It's not the most fun thing you ever do. But I'm not going to lie to you. Metcalfe County puts on a FAFSA fiesta every year, and you can eat Mexican food and file your FAFSA with me. So also, again, not the worst thing that you're ever going to do. We are kind of going to wrap it up a little bit, but Robin, I want to ask you, what is your piece of advice that you would give parents?
I think my biggest thing for parents is just remember that there's help out there. You're not having to do this alone. Take a breath. Don't get overwhelmed, because whether it be your student's teacher, their counselor, other parents who have had students go through school, or your Kia outreach counselor, there's always someone you can reach out to. We take being there for you very seriously, not only being in the schools helping out, but this year we started a helpline for the FAFSA specifically, or other financial aid questions, where you can call and get help from one of our Kia outreach staff any evening, Monday through Thursday. So we're there to help you. We want to help you. So don't get overwhelmed. Just make sure you're reaching out for help.
I love that. And I love that you said that the first thing that you said was there's help out there. Sometimes students can be like, they didn't tell me that. They didn't tell me that. Or my favorite is I had a student who, her parents were doctors. I'm talking like loaded. They were like, listen, we'll do the FAFSA. It's not going to help you. We're not going to help you at all. You're on your own. She applied for every single scholarship. She walked away with $62,000 a year for college. I'm sitting at an awards night, and this girl's name gets called, kid you not, no less than 18 times. And these little parents start whispering, I don't know why she's getting everything. Well, chances are she's probably the only one that applied. So you can be as aggravated at Susie as you want to, but if Susie was the only student that applied, Susie got the exact information that your student got. It's trash. Yeah.
When it comes to applying for scholarships, one of my school counselors has told a story about a guy that she knows. He applied for a girls only scholarship, and he got it simply because no girl applied for it. So number one reason you don't get scholarships is you don't apply.
Bingo. Take advantage of the information that your counselor is giving your student, that the counselor is giving you. Go to the parent night. Again, I know it's going to be on a Tuesday or Thursday, might even be the only night of the week that you don't have anything for the next 80 years of your life. Totally get it. I encourage you to go, because that's where they're going to share that information at. Kelly, what's your piece of advice?
Yeah, so obviously what Robin said, spot on. For me, it's have these conversations, start talking about it. That way you're not waiting until, like start as a freshman. We talked about timelines, but start having these conversations. What do you want to do? What, it doesn't have to be this, like, and I'm not saying like, say you've got to go to a 4-year college, but what's your plan? What type of thing, what do you want to do after high school and how can we help you get there? Having those conversations now. Something that I will forever wish that I did more of is taking tours, getting on campus. I was talking to somebody the other day and they're like, you would never buy a house or buy a car without, going and looking inside of it, stepping inside of it. Why would you do that with a college? So I had a full ride and I was set to go somewhere and I had never set foot on campus. And that blows my mind. And I chickened out last minute because I had never set foot on campus. Now, my parents, it wasn't like they weren't willing to do it. We just didn't. And I don't know why. So that's like one of my biggest regrets, not actually doing more tours and seeing what's out there. But having those conversations, being, not being afraid to ask questions, really get to know your school counselors, the parent teacher conferences that they have, those really just try to get involved as much as possible because it will fly by. And again, I've had a lot of conversations over the summer of what can I do now instead of what should I have been doing, a couple years ago to really start getting involved in this process. So it's kind of almost too little too late at that point, but have those conversations. Don't be afraid. We're here to help. You're never going to ask me a stupid question because I'm telling you, there's somebody out there that doesn't know it, and that's okay. Feel comfortable talking to us. Feel comfortable talking to your counselors and asking those questions because we want to help you get them answered, and we don't want you to feel incompetent or I'm too scared to, be able to. I just don't want to ask this. Like, and I'm telling you, like, we offer our contact information. It's on our website. Shoot us a text, shoot us an email. Please don't be afraid to reach out.
I love that, Kelly. I love that. Our communication's there. The help. I'm gonna go ahead and get that tattooed on me. The help is there. Brandon, what is your piece of advice for parents and guardians who are supporting their student through their higher education journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was thinking as I was listening to you guys, I love the advice that you guys have offered. I really do. I think that it's so accurate and on point. I'm just going to say it this way. If my toilet's clogged, I'm not calling the electrician. I'm calling the plumber. What do I mean by that? I have been in parent nights where there are CEOs of companies that make a lot more money than I'll ever see in my life, probably have a higher degree than I do. I've had superintendents in my parent nights. I've had doctors, lawyers, CPAs that in a million years, I would think they've got this FAFSA thing. They know what's going on. So what I tell my parents and guardians, those who are watching today, and I'm going to it goes right along with what Kelly said. When you're trying to find support and trying to find the financial aid, trying to find the answers, you go to the experts. If a CEO of a company doesn't understand the FAFSA, that speaks highly that a lot of people aren't going to understand the FAFSA. It's the way I look at it. Because I can remember my very first year in outreach, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that parent is such and such. They're going to think I'm ignorant. But no, they're the one listening to me because they didn't know what they needed to do. Whether it was the FAFSA, apply for scholarships. Kelly mentioned it. There is no dumb question. And I promise you, I love when my students will they'll be like, and then they'll ask that question and you're like, finally. And it was the most simple question in the world. But then someone else is like, because like they didn't have to ask it. Ask away. Come to these parent nights. When I like, it is what it is. I'm not going to call an electrician to fix my clogged toilet. I'm going to go to the right people. And I believe firmly that your Kia outreach team in the state of Kentucky has all 120 counties taken care of. Your college admissions counselors that we have, that we get to work with on almost a daily basis, they've got you covered. I know a few, even they work for other colleges, but if they can see that that student's not going to be able to afford that school, they may say, hey, what about this? And I give kudos. I have major props, major respect to that. There are counselors that are putting every scholarship in their Google Classroom. I had a parent the other night at a parent night said, hey, can we sign up for that senior Google Classroom? Absolutely, the counselor said. You have Infinite Campus. You know what your kids are doing, what grades. Now, parents, if you see a low grade, don't immediately blame the teacher or blame the student. They've got 7 classes that they're working with a day. They'll get the grades in. I have a lot of those conversations too. But go to the right people. You know, when it comes to the ACT, we mentioned that today. There are so many good ACT resources. 1 or 2 points on the ACT can bring you some money. And so my advice, if I put it into a nutshell, because I could talk all evening and these 3 know it, is don't be afraid to ask questions and go to the people that know what they're doing and that they've been there before. Another thing too is if we don't, I'm looking at Robin, Mackenzie, and Kelly, if we don't know the answer, we probably know somebody that does. And we're going to get that answer for you. We will. That's our job. Like legit. I want any person, I'm going to go ahead and change it to we want any student to make sure that they can do what they want to do. That could be a trade program, that could be a 4-year degree, or that could become a doctor, whatever it might be. But just seek it out. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm glad that you said that, Kelly. There's no dumb question. And I tell my parents and tell my counselors, and I know you guys do the same. If I'm not hearing from you, I'm concerned. Because I know questions are being asked and we're getting answers.
I love that. I love everything. I love everything that we've talked about tonight. Kelly has made an amazing realization. We're not on Facebook Live. We're on YouTube Live. So this is going to be shared somehow on Facebook. We're now 42 minutes and 59 seconds in, and I didn't have the heart to tell you at 34 minutes that we are not on Facebook Live. However, this is going to be shared to Facebook Live. Comment, share, like, comment your questions. It kind of all works out a little bit because a lot of schools are on fall break right now, and I totally get that. But yeah, so it's been a Monday, and I will tell you my piece of advice. Parents, let your students do things, but also support them in doing it. Don't be the person that's calling the financial aid department. Don't be the person that's calling admissions. You can help them find the phone number for it, but don't be the person that calls. You're not going to be there when they're waking up for an 8 a.m. class. Make them have them take responsibility for themselves and for their future. Be there to support. And I know you guys probably don't want to take any advice from somebody who has no kids, even though I'm chatting it up like I'm the best parent on the face of the planet. But take our advice. If you have questions about it, reach out. There's one more teeny tiny thing that I don't think that we mentioned about being contributors on the FAFSA. And then I promise I will stop this YouTube live. We will not use anyone on the FAFSA other than a biological, adoptive, or step parent. We're not using grandma. We're not using papa. We're not using uncle. We're not using aunt. We're not using the state. If a student is an independent student, we are only using that student's information. So I wanted to just kind of put that in right at the end. Hopefully you watched it all the way to now, even though it's not alive. But if you have questions, please reach out to us. That is why we are here. I will put our phone number that you can text on the screen. We will get you in contact with an outreach counselor in your territory if you need some one-on-one help or whatever that may be. So please feel free to holler at us. You can also find information about college planning and financial aid at kia.com. You can also find information on the outreach counselor in your area, kia.com, scroll all the way to the bottom, hit outreach counselor, and then they're listed. And you can find your county. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off here and beg Brandon Brown to somehow figure this out for me and post it on Facebook. It is Monday, folks. So I will see you all later. Have a good rest of whatever day you're seeing this on. And we will see you later.
Bye.